Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know if it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're chiming in from, but we're welcome to have you here. So thanks so much for chiming in. I have a special guest coming in from New York today. I have Brianna Carney. Brianna, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Well, we're thrilled to have you, and I'm excited to learn about Betty and Crew Bloom and all the amazing things you've been up to. But let me take a few minutes and just share with our audience who you are and why I've invited you to be here with us today. So Brianna's professional journey began in business development at a pioneering e-commerce startup, which she set the stage for her bright future in disruptive, high-growth environments. She joined Amazon, where she worked closely with startups and gained deep understanding of one of the greatest challenges that hold back small businesses, finding and retaining top talent. And so this has actually equipped her with her new adventures, Crew Bloom and Betty AI. And so it sounds like you have this great technical background, Brianna. And so I'm excited to learn more about that. But also in her spare time, she's working with Special Olympics. She's doing all kinds of other things that have an impact in the world. But I don't want to say everything because I want her to tell her story and her journey of how she has navigated to where she is today. So Brianna, let's kick it off with you. Maybe tell us who you are and what has led you down the path you're on today.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for having me and just sharing your message. Your episodes and content's always the best. That being said, I think just like as a human being, I trying to learn and grow and be better each day, as we all are. As a leader and as a founder, I think my co-founder and I are pretty focused on better understanding how to lead technical resources and build a pure software product. That's Betty. Crew Bloom is kind of was our first brand, and Crew Bloom's in the global recruiting space. So obviously that business is tech enabled versus a pure SaaS business. And so that kind of got our feet wet with technology, and we did a really, really good job there. I think my team did. I just am the cheerleader at this point, but.
Okay. Don't be too humble. Okay. No. There had to be brains behind it. So yeah. I want to showcase Brianna.
Yeah. But yeah, I think today our main obsession and focus and what we're working on is really understanding how to build out APIs and integrations really effectively and add value that way.
Okay. Awesome. Well, maybe talk a little bit about, if you would, talk to us about this revolutionizing remote work. And let's start with sort of this global recruitment, because the pandemic certainly helped us start to look at working differently, right? So, and you were ahead of the curve on that. So maybe talk about that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I think for me, and I know there's a lot of folks, I don't remember the government, there's obviously a lot of changes going on in the US right now, and a lot of conversation about whether or not remote work is as productive. I just believe that it is. And we, my co-founder and I had that instinct from the inception of Crew Bloom, and it really played to our advantages, in particular on the technical marketing side. So on the back end, we had keywords positioned really favorably for COVID. So things like work from home and remote work, because part of our business is, of course, attracting companies that are growing and are in need of talent, but without the actual talent coming through the pipeline, the business doesn't operate. And so we saw about 10x increase on the inbound applicant side of the business effectively overnight when COVID happened. And then we quickly closed Pfizer, which kind of legitimized our business and brand. But I think for us, I don't know, I always say, on a C-suite interview, work matters. Like obviously everyone is listening to this today to improve as professionals and leaders and really build something valuable and meaningful. But at the end of our lives, I would be lucky if my team reflected back on their time on earth and remembered Crew Bloom as the place that they worked, that they didn't hate being at, and they felt valued, and they built something that they were proud of, right? Like watching Netflix and hanging out with our kids and volunteering in our communities and being a good neighbor and a son and daughter. Like that's what really matters. And so I just would rather have my team. I want every minute of their lives to be as good as humanly possible, because happy people produce the best results. And so for my co-founder and I, it was just like, obviously in the markets that we're sourcing talent, traffic, and getting to and from an office is time and labor intensive. And so we just thought it just made sense. It was just logical for us to have folks working remotely. And so we're happy we went that direction.
Well done. Well done. And I agree with you. I think actually you have a lot more productivity because people are happier, right? And they get to do things their way. And I think back, in earlier days in my own career, like I would commute 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. That's 4 hours of your day that you're missing with your families, with your community, with all the things you just said. And, when the pandemic happened, I was more productive. And then when I designed my business now, I designed it for remote work so that I can impact people anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in my local city, right? So how did you, I'm curious about this global reach for talent, because I think that's really important, right? So now you've created a platform where there's more access to global talent. So why, number one, and then how have you found that talent?
Yeah, so I think for us, it just makes sense. Like the more diversity we can penetrate all conversations with, the better the outcome, we believe. And so for us, just I don't really think, I think a lot of my time spent at Amazon was reflecting on how it became the behemoth it is. And I don't think at any point of time Jeff Bezos really even considered being an all-American company. That's just nonsensical. And so leveraging lower costing economies and a more diverse talent pool just made a lot of business sense for my co-founder and I. And yeah, that's kind of why we went that direction. And I'm sorry, the second part of the question?
Well, just how you attract that global talent, right? Because that's a big step if you're living in, let's say, Japan, and then you're going to work in North America, or if you're living in wherever, I don't know, Sardinia, and you're going to start working. How are you finding that talent? Because that's part of it too, right? Of attracting the right people.
It is, yeah. That's kind of our secret sauce, so to speak. So the compliance and the litigious environment has radically shifted and become, I would say, more cumbersome and painful since we started the business. But that being said, whenever we explore launching a new market, we have to have counsel that ensures that we're being compliant and abiding by both the IRS labor laws and the Department of Consumer Affairs. We submit documentation to the IRS and Department of Labor, and we take full burden and ownership of the compliance environment. And so our clients contract through us, and we then their contract with the individuals. And so we've gotten pretty creative in the markets that we source talent in. Now today, about 50% of our accepted candidates come through the referral channels, which obviously is
Nice.
the best
That's
way
gold.
to But I think it's just there's a lot of advantages with going aggressively to the consumer markets or the contractor markets that we're in. Our ad spend, for example, is pennies on the dollar in, let's say, a market like South Africa in comparison to what you'd spend in Houston.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so that's an interesting point, even when you bring that up. So what are some of the challenges when you're skipping around to different continents? And so you talked about the, legalities of doing that. What are some other challenges that a person would face, even starting any kind of business in different continents?
Yeah, so I think there's just a couple components. Like first is the work environment. So ensuring that our folks are equipped with primary power sources and primary internet sources and primary devices, as well as backup. So
Hmm.
we've taken a lot of precautionary steps, such as heat mapping internet connectivity and really understanding markets and scoring markets in terms of how vulnerable are they to power outages or connectivity issues, and targeting our ad budget accordingly, or really soliciting talent in markets where folks will be successful.
Right.
And my co-founder owns and oversees the recruitment and the sourcing piece, but that team works really hard to ensure that our folks are equipped and empowered to be successful in the remote work environment. There's other factors that we need to consider, cultural factors, um, things such as like, let's just say, for example, the background of your remote work environment is needs to be blurred. Like those small concessions, or positioning them and empowering them to be successful in a remote work interview versus an in-person interview. So really just investing in our people and making sure that they understand what cultural bridges they're going to have to overcome to be considered.
Wow. Wow. That's quite significant when you think about it, right? And even when you were talking about the heat mapping and internet connectivity, it's so interesting you say that, because I was working with a group out of Africa, actually, Nigeria,
Amazing. Yeah.
and it was just the power was on and off all the time, and you didn't know when these rolling waves were going to happen, and so it did make it complex to actually, be able to be live in a call like you and I are on right now. But you wouldn't, like, if you're thinking about a business that is global, sometimes you don't think about those things because we have such access here in North America, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen it
Wow.
all.
I'm sure you have. Wow. So, what has been some of your favorite stories with uh, Crew Bloom? And I'm going to switch over to Betty here in a minute. But with Crew Bloom, if you think about, like, the most fantastical or most proud of moments, what has captured your attention the most?
So we had a pretty good year last year. I was proud of the team. Um, we exceeded projections. So last year was just a strong year across the board. I think like I think it like there's not like standout moments anymore. It's just like really small wins that kind of propel you and motivate you to continue. Anything such as a team member who was with their family who's now asking for documentation from HR to get a home loan, or someone who's a beneficiary of Crew Bloom Gives Back, our charitable programs. There's just so much. The team's done such a good job. And so really, I think they deserve all the credit. I'm just lucky to cheer them on and guide them when possible.
Well, I hear women say that often, that they're lucky. And what I would say is it took vision and it took hard work for you to get it to where it is. So, kudos to you as well. Even though you're cheerleading, that means a lot to people, and making sure that there's that vision and the scaling up of the organization so that you are creating jobs in a place that people can call their second home, right? So that becomes really important. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm humbled.
Oh, well, and you deserve that, right? Because anytime we're impacting humanity, I mean, that's significant. Let's just say it that way. So tell us about Betty. Betty has launched or is about to launch, right?
Betty's live. Yep.
She's live. Okay. And the audience is saying, "Who's Betty and what's Betty?" So give us some information on Betty and what's her abilities and why you called her Betty. I'm curious on that. Happens to be my mom's name, is why I'm curious.
A strong name. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Betty is, again, as mentioned, a pure SaaS play. And so I think in foundership, you get to a point where the business is sustaining and you feel as though the day-to-day is no longer as challenging as it once was. And so I think my co-founder and I had a really she is far more technical and capable and brilliant than myself always, but she really had a conviction that AI and voice AI was going to disrupt our space. And so the conversation kind of became a front burner issue, give or take 2.5 years ago, and she really did her due diligence, and we started buying out some data and understanding the landscape of where voice AI could have the greatest impact. And we knew we needed to build out integrations and understand how to build an API. So we built Shopify first. Shopify is a rigorous approval process. I don't know if anyone's ever built an API for Shopify, but so now Betty is supporting Shopify stores in a voice. She's with voice support, so she integrates with 11 labs and has humanoid reactions, and I would say that she's about 95%, 96, or on a good day, percent effective. 4% of the time we have to escalate and have someone intercept the call that's a human, but I think that's a pretty good outcome. And so, yeah, she's
95%. Yeah.
yeah, but she's still susceptible or vulnerable to what we call hallucinations, which is what we're obsessed with overcoming today.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So that's a challenge, like taking an AI operation or platform and really humanizing it. And I think that's probably the world's biggest fear is our computer's going to take over, and will it sense and feel, human? So tell me why Betty?
Yeah, so I think it again just goes back to like my co-founder and I wanting to challenge ourselves and build a pure like SaaS company. We're non-technical in our nature, like we're not engineers, and so understanding a new landscape, having a fresh brand, and seeing at some point Crew Bloom and Betty supporting one another,
Nice.
really motivated us to get to work building it out.
Okay. And so when you talk about like starting up a business, like, a lot of times our listeners are going, okay, how do you get funding for that? What did you have to go through? Like, what was the rigor and even the legalities, right? And especially if you're not an engineering background, but you saw a need, and so you went after that need and how to create something. So maybe walk us through what were some of those biggest hurdles of bringing Betty to fruition.
Yeah, so I'll go back to your question about funding, because I know there's a lot of talk in the ecosystem about this, and my co-founder and I have pretty strong convictions about bootstrapping. We bootstrap both companies, and I feel strongly that if we would have gone after a round when we started Crew Bloom, we would have failed because we just needed to like learn a lot of really hard lessons, and if they were costing investors, the pressure would have been unsustainable. But because it was us just learning, and we were essentially the ones flipping the bill for those fumbles, we were able to find the strength to get up and get back to work. So I believe strongly that for us, Crew Bloom being able to fund Betty was critical. And I think my co-founder and I got to a juncture where we're like, okay, we have enough cash to get to work building this out. Because the line, once you've gone after a round, and there's this like energy in the ecosystem of us really celebrating securing a massive round of funding over what we believe the real test is, which is revenue. Like there's really only one metric that matters for for-profit companies. It doesn't matter how big of a round you secured. Securing funding takes so much time and so much stamina away from foundership that it also makes the founding team more fragile and depleted. So for us, we are proud that we bootstrapped. And yeah, so we're just trying to go brick by brick, team member by team member. Engineers are expensive, but I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I think that's kind of how we got started. You asked a little bit more about the litigious piece. So this might be controversial as well, but I think like at a certain point of time, like you just have to Google, because lawyers are really expensive.
Yeah.
And the reason women in business tend to play by the rules more, I think, than our male counterparts. And so I think there was a catch me if you can energy between my co-founder and I that made getting out of the gate and launching markets feasible. Once you get to a certain level, you're a mature business and you can't really just throw stuff against the wall and hope it sticks. At that point, you need to have
do your due diligence even more so.
Yeah, but I think out of the gate, especially, we were able to just kind of Google contracts and agreements and throw stuff together and really but we believed in what we were selling, and so we found a way to make it work.
Wow. So you said a number of things there, I think, that are really important and valuable for the audience. Like, one is recognizing there's multiple routes you can take to get to an end result or to get funding. So you ladies decided to fund it yourself. And that kept you very focused and driven to get the results. But it also kept the distractions out of the way, which I think that's an important message if somebody's listening and wanting to start a business. Because when you have investors, often they want to have a say in how you do things. Not that that's bad, because you may need that expertise. But what I was hearing you say is that really drove you both to do even more to get things profitable, to get that revenue generated.
Of course. And like, I think like there's this also really um, unhealthy tendency of Forbes to really kind of assume that all entrepreneurs want the same thing. My
Mm.
co-founder and I very clearly want to grow and sell companies, but we want to have a bit of freedom in terms of our lifestyle, and we want to be able to butter our bread without anxiety. And so for us, we just felt strongly that the freedom component would be jeopardized if we had to answer to shareholders. The synergy between working for Amazon and corporate America when you have investors, it's just much more closely aligned to having a Fortune 500 job. And so for us, we were like, we want to do it a different way. And we for example, we through a leadership team building it in Bali. And at that time, we were considering going after a round. It wasn't cheap to fly our leadership team to Bali, but that paid
Of
off.
course.
And Kate and I were both just like, the investors really didn't like, they frowned upon that. Like, maybe it's best that we don't work together because also investors, like that's a marriage, like you're giving part of your equity to them and they'll have a say forever. So just like think twice, but some businesses are dependent on it. So I don't want this to be misinterpreted.
No, I think what you're sharing is you're sharing that there's multiple ways that you can go about it, right? It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
just one way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, Brianna. I think that's really good lessons. And then also what I heard you talk about there was, just having that courage to believe in what you're doing and believe in it so much that you just keep moving forward with it. And sometimes we have ideas and we're afraid to put it to market or to test it, right? Or if we get a few no's, we get discouraged. And so what I heard you say is have that conviction and just really go for your dream. And you also created it not only for yourselves, but for your employees so that it is very human centric in making sure, even though it's an AI product for one of them, it's very human centric in making sure that your people are happy and have the lifestyle that affords them a better life.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Well
Yeah.
said.
Awesome. So when you think about all the lessons that you've learned through both Crew Bloom and Betty AI, like what would you really want to stress to our audience, to help them not make the same mistakes or to encourage them to take those steps?
So I think one of the hardest lessons that I learned, my co-founder was always much stronger in this, or she was just much better and durable than myself. But it was really hard because of how much I care about the business, to really only. So this is like really interesting. I was actually just having a reflection with my girlfriend about this because I don't oftentimes love myself as I do like my friends and family. Like I love my friends, regardless of what they do. It's only about who they are. Like if my girlfriend showed up to brunch on Sunday and we're like, we are gonna just be like, I don't even know, like, we're gonna join the mafia or we're gonna do something. Like I'm like, whatever, baby girl, I got your back. You're good. Like I support you no matter what. Or if they just decide to be a couch potato, right? I'm like, have at it, baby girl, like live your best life. Myself, however, I struggle with that. I value myself and based off of my output and what I produce.
Mm.
And so it's a really hard lesson as an entrepreneur that really the reason why people are here is for what they produce and the value that they are able to bring to the organization. And you have to evaluate them solely on their output. And you have to really set aside preferences or any human connection, because that really doesn't matter. We're only looking at one thing, and that's what you bring to the table.
Okay, interesting. So I'd be curious, if I were to talk to your partner, what would she say about you?
Woofda. That's a really, really good question. That's so funny. I'm sure that she, so my co-founder knows me better than anyone, of course. We've been doing this. She was my first hire. I think that she would say I'm all over the place. Like I'm improving as a day-to-day operator, but I'm a pure visionary. So I just really have a lot of visions. And she's she would also articulate that that we have different opinions about our ad spend and our ad allegations, but that's a different story. That's just something that
Okay.
But she would say that I think I'm really passionate about the team and articulate and a better extrovert, able to communicate the business and our brand in a way that she's not able to, but she's really the brains of the organization and the reason why we're all here. So I hope that she would be able to give herself that pat on the back as well.
Okay. Well, I do want to remind you that you are co-founders and it takes both of you. So it sounds like to me that you're a good yin and yang. You have different strengths, but you bring those together, which has helped you be this creative and bring to life Betty and Crew Bloom. So congratulations on both. That's awesome.
Thank you. I'm so humbled. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And so is there any parting words that you would want to share with our audience? If somebody's sitting on their sofa right now, or they're out walking their dog and they're listening to our talk and they're thinking, do I go to market with this idea? What would you say?
Yeah, oofta. So I would say, yes, all ideas should be brought to market and tested. I would advise anyone to challenge yourself to become unemotional with the initial iteration, because you're undoubtedly going to have to make pivots and you're going to have to adjust. Also, I would challenge them to really be real with themselves about, is this a passion project, something I'm passionate about? What do I want out of this? Am I trying to drive revenue? Is this a lifestyle business? Do I want to exit? Do I want to position for acquisition? But yeah, you starting with listening to this content and really trying to understand how to position yourself for foundership is a great start. So keep up the good work. And everybody can find me on LinkedIn. I mentor for WE NYC, which is the Women Entrepreneurs of NYC. So I'm happy to help out in any way that I can.
Amazing. So audience, you can find Brianna Carney on LinkedIn. Do you have a website, Brianna, or just mainly stick with LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, but you can send us a contact form on crewbloom.com.
Okay.
Or use betty.ai.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try out Betty. I want to see what Betty's all about. And sorry, just why did you pick Betty as the name?
This is hilarious. So my co-founder and I really knew so Gemini, like gorgeous. There's all of these new SaaS products that are just nouns. And so we knew we wanted to make it a female, and we knew we wanted her to have a name. And my neighbor across the street has a basset hound named Betty. And Betty loves belly rubs. So every time you're walking, Betty will just lay in front of your feet and roll over for a belly rub. And I was like on a call with my co-founder walking my dog, and we saw Betty, and I was like, I always have to dodge Betty because she's going to make me rub her belly, and I don't have time for that right now. So I was like, oh, sorry, Kate, I'm running across the street. It was just Betty. And she's like, what? And we're like, Betty sounded good.
I love it.
On social media, and Betty's just a strong name.
It is a strong name. And as I said, it's my mom's name, and I love it. I think that's terrific. And I love the story behind that. I think that's great, because clearly the dog, you have affection for that dog because it gets your attention and your love. So that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, wow. Brianna, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for sharing your journey. And audience, I want to thank you for being here as well. We know you're chiming in from 50 plus countries. So thank you for that. Check out Betty. Just see what Betty's all about. And if you're, like Crew Bloom too, if you're looking for, finding a new opportunity, new career, that'd be a great way to check her out as well. So Again, this is Brianna Carney. Brianna, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all that you do for the ecosystem.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And audience, just remember that you can go on to willempowered.com and you can take our free leadership quiz. It'll give you some insight as to how you're showing up as a leader in this world. And all of us are leaders. So check out and see how you're doing. Thank you again. And we'll see you on the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.willempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.